I'll go first because I'm the eldest. My name is Malone Ballew Stinson. I graduated from Aurora in 1959, and I came there from Lenore, North Carolina. I currently live in Greensboro, North Carolina.
I am Tori Ballew Reynolds. Tori is short for Victoria. I too grew up in Lenore, North Carolina, and graduated from Aurora College in 1965.
John Ballew. I'm the younger of the three here, and I was in the class of graduating class of '68, although we left in '67, and took my wife Pam with me, and we went to the Advent Christian Village to work there.
I'm Pamela Ballew. I lived in Lombard, Illinois, and I decided as a young person that I wanted a small college to go to, and I made application to several in the area, and Aurora made a contact with me and made a special effort to introduce me to the campus. I believe Dave Andrews was the gentleman who brought me on campus and ushered my mother and I around, and just made me feel very, very welcome, a very warming area. I was the first child in my family to go to college, and so they were pretty hesitant of letting me go anywhere, so I was only about 35, 40 miles away from home. And I was also in the class of '68, and as my husband said, we left in '67 and went to the Advent Christian Children's Home, and were married that fall in September.
I met a couple of the, faculty, Gerald Richardson, and I met Dr. Stevens, and they both talked to me about coming to Aurora and worked with me on how I could afford it. And so I came, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Roger Parolini was a frequent visitor in our area, and he always had a good word for Aurora College.
Roger Parolini always came and brought the choir, and actually brought Malone back to sing on a choir tour, so he promoted the college quite well, and always asked, you're planning to go to Aurora, aren't you? Aurora provided some loans and, like I say, some work outside the college. That was a good experience, working outside the college, working in Aurora.
With maintenance too.
I did. I worked with maintenance on campus, provided some income there. So it was all fun. A lot of good times and a lot of hard work. Earned a lot of education outside of the classroom too, but meeting people from a different part of the country, which, we had never been out of North Carolina, so to speak. So we were invoking on a career of meeting new people, so that was good.
You and me.
And I got this lady.
Tell me.
Well, there were people in my neighborhood that had gone to college before. Nobody in my immediate family, because I was first. But nobody had gone away to college, and so that was kind of a neighborhood conversation piece for a while. And it was a bit of a culture shock when I got to the Midwest, because not just the landscape, but different food, different accents. Got a lot of teasing about my southern accent. And when I came home for Christmas on my first vacation home, I got a lot of teasing about my northern accent.
And you introduced the rest of us to pizza.
Yeah.
We had not, I don't think we'd even heard of pizza. But what can you say when you have one radio and one TV in your house? And Mom and Dad say, what can be viewed on the TV and heard from the radio. So we hadn't had a chance to learn about pizza. It was awful, as I recall, but at least it was an introduction to something new. I mean, so that's the food area. We also were introduced to, this is going to make us sound really old-fashioned, integrated classrooms. I had never attended an integrated classroom, and nothing happened when I did. It worked out beautifully. So, and my next door, no, 2 doors down neighbor in the dormitory was from Iraq. Her name was Marlene. I cannot remember her last name. Iraq. I mean, I knew geography, so I knew sort of where it was, but until you actually meet somebody from an actual place that you've read about, it does not seem real to you. And so horizons were broadened.
I came to Aurora College because it was a haven. It was quiet and peaceful and a respite, more so because I was lost in the crowd in high school. Did well, or mediocre, but I thrived at Aurora because the people were just so warm and caring. The friendships have lasted just so long. In fact, we went on a cruise a couple of years ago with a couple that we hadn't seen in 40 years that went to Aurora College, and there were 6 of us, no, 8 of us. 8 of us that were on a cruise, all Aurora College alumni, and we picked up right where we left off. So we really enjoyed being together with John and Jody Fennelson, and Lewis and Mark, Randy and Mark Wright, and Tim and Zan Gustafson. They're in California and Seattle.
They all live on the West Coast.
West Coast, and we drove
But we also meet with Dan and Joanne
in Chicago.
Swanson. They live in Chicago, and Dan was a roommate of mine and Randy's in Spartan Terrace. We had the famous Spartan Terrace dorm there, and Randy and I roomed together, and we got this lowly freshman coming in from Chicago, and Randy being from the West Coast and me being from the mountains, a hillbilly, that we got this uptown Chicago guy that spoke proficiently, and all this.
But he brought chocolate chip cookies every weekend.
Oh yeah, we had chocolate chip cookies and Pepsis and pizzas every Thursday night. So it was a lot of fun. We really bonded with
Great camaraderie.
fellow classmen, and like I say, those relationships have lasted this long. And we've gone several cruises with Dan and Randy, and then we got Jody and Tim on this last cruise, which was an excellent cruise, 7 days down the West Coast. So it was a lot of fun. But we, like I say, remembered old times and didn't even think we were as old as we were. So a lot of behind the scene people that I had an opportunity to work with, being able to work with the maintenance on the college. People like Wilfred Snyder, Bezansons, and Bill Doty. Those people were really, they were solid faith Christian people, and they would work with you and lead you in a direction that you needed to go. And we were able to follow Wilfred Snyder down to the children's home, actually, at a Christian children's home. He and his wife moved there, as well as his son and his wife later on moved down in that area. So those people were really influential. They might not have been in the education end of it, but I still consider that part of the education that we received, by being able to have these kind of people behind you and promoting you. And they were all about Aurora College.
I remember that Mrs. Snyder was one of the cooks in the cafeteria. And the cafeteria was closed during holidays, like short holidays, like Thanksgiving weekend. Mrs. Snyder would cook an enormous Thanksgiving dinner at her home and invite students who did not go away for Thanksgiving, those from the West Coast and a distance. She would have a crowd of students in her home for Thanksgiving. Arvita Thomas did the same thing. She was a staff member in the registrar's office. Another staff member was Marion Pulaski. I think she was secretary in the dean's office. She used to invite me to come home with her for the weekend, overnight. She lived in Yorkville, and she would come to work half an hour early the next morning so I could get back to a 7:30 class. So she, would invite me just so I'd have a night out of the dorm and a home-cooked meal. And, lots of people went out of their way to be nice to the students. I have been back for my 50-year reunion, and since then too. But I was pleased to see that much of the atmosphere that we experienced is still there. I don't know if it has always been there or if it disappeared for a time and it's coming back, but I was really impressed by the faculty and their caring for the students. And I met several of the students personally. They gave us tours and were very nice to the returning alumni. I was just pleased to see that that atmosphere is still there.
I would hope that Aurora College would retain that close one-to-one relationship with people, and that homebodiness, make them feel like a family.